Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be a mid-year book tag. I've read 9 books so far this year, and today I will be rating and reviewing, spoiler free, hopefully, each and every single book today. Some of these books left me still pondering about the characters and the stories, and a few of them were very lackluster. My reading goal for this year was 12 books, which was 1 book each month. I don't like to give myself a high reading goal because then I get really discouraged when I don't meet that goal. So for this year, I did 12, and I've already read 9. So hopefully by the end of the year, we can double it and I read around like 20, hopefully. I'll be rating the 9 books that I read so far in chronological order from the start of January to June, which is 6 months of reading 9 books. So let's get started. The first book that I read for this year was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. This book was everywhere when it was released, but I'm one of those type of people that doesn't like to hop on trends right away, so I never read it until this year. I got the physical copy, and I also followed along with an audiobook that is read out loud by Jennette McCurdy herself. It was very interesting to see how a child actress that I adored and watched on television growing up was suffering from so much fame and pressure behind the scenes. If you're someone who is Gen Z or someone who just grew up watching shows like iCarly on Nickelodeon, I think it would be very entertaining and eye-opening. I felt sorry for her, and I'm just happy to see that she's found real happiness in her writing, seemingly. So I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was very nice. The next book that I read in January was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read this for my little book club that I have with my aunt and my sister, and this book would have got 4 stars, but I didn't like how they wrapped up the book. So a little, well, it's not really a spoiler. I think it says it like in the synopsis, but the book is about a girl who is trying to find her missing friend, but something is revealed at the end, and it just made me upset. Like, it really just pissed me off. It was like, why did I had all this built up for nothing? Like, what was the point? So, okay, so I'm trying not to spoil anything. Hopefully y'all get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I didn't like the trope that it decided to end on. So it got demoted to 3 stars. Now, the next book was A Little Life, and you can see the annotations on this baby. She's thick. It's a lot with this book. It's a lot. I was very much expecting this book to break me, and mission complete. It did. I cried like twice reading this, and I think it mostly came from relating to the main character, Jude, over not being able to let go of the past and having deep-rooted insecurities. He has very low self-esteem, and he thinks nobody cares for him, even though he is surrounded by people that truly love him and care for him. And I just related with that. Seeing it in a book that's already heavily filled with trauma made it very raw to me. I loved the romance between Jude and Willem, and I loved the friendship between the men in general. I can only compare the male friendship dynamic to an older, darker counterpart of the friendship in The Outsiders, because that's like the only other book that I read that had a group of men and their friendship. And that's more so how the characters cared for each other, not the characters themselves. These characters are completely like polar opposites from the characters in The Outsiders, so I just want to make that distinction. I only gave it 4 stars because I felt like at the end, like a good chunk just could have been like left unsaid. Like where I stopped putting a lot of the tabs, it just felt like it was dragging on. But overall, it was an amazing book, and I still think about this book after I've read it. So this was very, very good. If you want to cry, there's lots of triggers. I'll be putting that all on the screen, but and the themes of the book and stuff like that. But if you want to cry, definitely read this. But yes, this book was 4 stars. And I don't like half ratings, but if I could rate it a half, I will. 4.5, I would, but 4 stars. We're on to Half His Age again by Jennette McCurdy. I was so excited for this one, not gonna lie. I was kind of hyped because her memoir was already very great. It was 5 stars, but this just felt flat to me. This book gets compared a lot to My Dark Vanessa, which was the first book that I read that got me really back into reading. I don't think this story articulated the story and themes of an age gap relationship well enough. The character, she seems like a realistic, very angsty, knows everything teen girl. But I think the speed of how the main character ends up falling for the teacher, and then how they get together, and then how they break up, it just felt very rushed. So I gave it a 3. But a 2.5 would have sufficed as well. I really don't even remember anything about the plot. I just felt like she looked at him and then it was just boom, fantasy. And sometimes crushes do form like that. I am guilty of that. So I'm not gonna, but I just felt like it was rushed and it didn't really go anywhere. Like, I don't know what the ending, I don't know. I can't really remember. I only read 1 book for March, and it was My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I had this on my TBR for a long time. I just never got to it, but I finally ended up reading this book when I was on my mini break of rest and relaxation from getting the other side of my wisdom tooth out. So I felt very more connected to the story. The main character struggles with depression and isolation. And as I started reading, I was trying to predict how the story would go, with the plot centering around being asleep for an extended period of time. And I could see why some people didn't like the book, and I can definitely see why some people loved the book. I was in the middle, hence 3 stars for this. I think the author got the point across. The whole plot centers around the main character numbing herself. So I didn't expect any character growth. She's not really a character you're supposed to be rooting for or a likable character, and I think she's written very well. I definitely enjoyed this book way more than the author's other book, Eileen, which I do have. I would have never guessed that both books were written by the same author. This is completely up my alley. I gave it 3 stars. Okay, so for April, I read Beloved. This was my first book by Toni Morrison, and it will definitely not be the last. I think I want to read The Bluest Eyes next. In the beginning, I definitely struggled due to not knowing the meaning of certain words or what exactly was going on, because the writing was kind of like a riddle to me. Like, a sentence could translate to something completely different, and I just couldn't comprehend it. So I read this book alongside a site that gave me a chapter by chapter summary until I was able to finish the book without it, and I definitely think it helped. I thought the book was going to be a sad book about a Black family during slavery. I didn't know it was going to involve gothic themes such as a haunted house, a ghost seeking revenge, and deep psychological trauma from American slavery. But it made me more interested. I struggled reading this book because it was very intimidating to me at first, but I'm glad I pushed through, and it was worth it because I expanded my knowledge as a reader. So it was a win for me. This was a good book. I gave it 4 stars. Okay, so the second book that I read for April it's kind of a funny story, and this book really did shook me to its core. I had this book on my TBR for a while, but it wasn't until I had my own personal experience that landed me in a hospital that I realized maybe I should read this book. I related to the main character about experiencing academic burnout and constantly comparing myself to my peers. Some of the characters and their behaviors were very weird, but granted, The story does take place in a mental hospital, so you're going to have a lot of different personalities there. I didn't like how it ended. The main character meets a girl during his stay, and I just felt like it was kind of unnecessary. It made him seem like him finding someone was what he needed to get better, when I believe you need to want better for yourself before you can want someone else. In the synopsis, it includes like a trans girl, but she's only in it for like 5 seconds. But she's like mentioned, like I thought reading the synopsis she would play like a bigger role, but she's only mentioned for 5 seconds. And the character is written poorly, but the book came out in 2006, so I digress. I was very sad to hear that the author, he struggled personally with depression, as the main character in this book does, and he ended up killing himself years later. So I just felt it was like scary. This book is 4 stars. I will never forget this book. I definitely read this at a time when I needed something comforting after the experience that I had. So it was very good to me. Very nice book. I was in a reading slump, and my coworker kept reminding me of the Hunger Games series because she loved the series. So I brought the book, and y'all, this book, it took me out of my reading slump, surprisingly. It really did. The writing was great. World building was phenomenal. It made me want to visit every place that was mentioned. And then after I read the book and then I instantly watched the movie, seeing everything just come to life, just as how I imagined in my head, it was just great. I thought it was so cool. If you aren't familiar with the Hunger Games series, it is a popular dystopian series that is about a young girl named Katniss who was chosen to participate in an annual game where children under 18 are supposed to fight to death until there is only one victor. It has strong symbolism and themes that parallel to the United States, such as the extreme wealth gap, media distraction, and exploiting marginalized groups of people for profit solely for entertainment. I gave it 5 stars because I think it did its job as a young adult dystopian fiction. This was my first introduction to this genre. I think it's a very good starter book if you're looking to read more books similar to the Hunger Games. I finally understood why this book had so many young teens back in the day in a chokehold. If I read this when I was younger, when it was popular and the movies were just coming out, I definitely would have been on Wattpad reading fan fiction between the main characters. Like, I truly missed out. But I gave it 5 stars. It took me out my reading slump, made me feel something. My latest book that I finished was Holy Boy. The cover's beautiful. It really captivated me. And when I found out that my friend was reading it, I definitely just had to jump on board. It is about 4 strange women who decide to kidnap a K-pop idol, and it ends horribly, of course. The 4 main women all have their own different reasons to why they want the K-pop idol, and I think how the author wrote their personalities was just extremely well done. They're not the same, but they do have they share that one goal, being the K-pop idol, so you can see where they are similar, morally at least, but they just show it in different ways. And I especially love the commentary on idols expecting to be perfect and only existing to be loved by others. In the book, there's a quote, I think I tabbed it, hopefully. Don't even think about loving someone if you don't have the guts to love their bloody pus. I really like that quote because I think fans in real life do act weird towards their faves. Like, they put idols on such a high pedestal solely because of an image that we are given to see. When at the end of the day, these idols are regular human beings just like everyone else. We only see this one curated side of idols, but if we knew them personally, would we really like the other sides of them? The bad side, the dark sides, would we really like them? We don't know these people for real. I gave it 3 stars just because I couldn't keep up with all the backstories of minor characters that were being introduced. And I wanted to read more about the K-pop idol's thoughts throughout all this happening. I wish we got more of his POV than we did in the story. I heard a lot of people saying that they didn't expect the book to be what it was, but I felt like it was pretty straightforward when I read the synopsis. Like, I don't know, like I could have sworn it 4 obsessed women kidnap K-pop idol. Like it was right there, but I don't know, it did what it had to do for me, and I really did enjoy it. So that was all the 9 books that I read. Oh my god. So now let's get to the questions of the mid-year book tag. So the biggest surprise of the year would definitely be me reading The Hunger Games. If you would have told me when I was a kid that I would really like this book and that I should have just gave it a shot, I would have been like, no, I don't mess with dystopian. So I think this book was the biggest surprise of the year so far. It definitely has to be a tie between A Little Life and It's Kind of a Funny Story. A Little Life, I just remember, I think I remember points, like 2 times where I did cry, because it just was, it's just so sad. Yeah, I'm like literally shaking at the thought of it. The book is just so sad, and the ending is sad. Everything is sad. Like the book is, go look up the definition of sad. This will be a picture in the dictionary. Like, this book is just sad. The epitome of sadness. Like, this is what this book is. And then I honestly don't know if I think I cried just with the mental health and the hospital aspect of it. Like, it really came in clutch, because it was at a time where I was very, very, like, I don't even have the words for it. But this book, it kind of like, it spoke to me, and I definitely related to the character, the protagonist, even though he's like in high school at the time. But then I also related to him, my thoughts when I was in high school, when I was younger. So it was definitely a book for my younger self, and a book for me when I was in that predicament back in April. I feel like none of these books were kind of happy though. I'm like really looking back. I guess I would say probably I'm glad my mom died, because just to see how she has blossomed into an author, a very successful author. Like, I know if a title like I'm glad my mom died, it's very like, what the f. But sometimes, you know, just because they are family, sometimes your family could be your worst enemies. So just the aftermath and seeing the success of the book, it just made me happy for her. If we're talking about cover, it has to go to Holy Boy. The cover was just like sucking me in, like, I don't know. And the back is just beautiful. If we're talking about story and writing, dun, 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 it's going to be A Little Life. Again, I think this story was just so gut-wrenching, and just like, you know how it's going to end, but then it ends and you're just like what the freak, like, why? But I completely understood, and people were mad at this book's ending as well, saying that the ending was just too sad. Sometimes life is just sad. Sometimes people do experience one thing after another constantly. Sometimes, like, life has no mercy for anyone. To me, it really resonated with me. I loved the writing. I loved the characters. It really stuck with me. So, yeah. Now, to wrap up, let's do what I'm currently reading and what I plan to read next. I plan to read Almond. I'm going to borrow my friend's book to read Almond. And then what I'm currently reading is going very, very good so far. Right now, how I rate books, it's like everything starts as a 5, and then the more critiques, it goes down. Right now, this is a 5. This is Eleanor Oliphant. I don't know how to say her fucking last name. I'm sorry. But Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. And I love how the main character has eczema, and I suffer from eczema too. Like I said, it doesn't take that much to impress me. Like, it really doesn't. This book so far is 5 stars, but hopefully I'll be done probably next week, so then I can read Almond. I really wanted to read The Count of Monte Cristo. That book is sitting on my bookshelf, but that might be a little bit too much on my plate. And I think, oh, Margot's Got Money Trouble, because I saw on Instagram they compared this book to Margot's Got Money Trouble, so I want to read that book after, because I have like a future video idea of me comparing different books with similar plots, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so that was it for this year's mid-year book tag. What's the best book that you read so far this year? Let me know in the comments. And if you read any of these books, I love to hear whether you guys agree or disagree with my ratings. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.